even going into this. Oh, there it goes. That was off. Whatever that was, just turned it back on.
I still don't hear anything.
No, when you clicked that, it turned on. Whatever you just clicked, it turned it on.
Oh, there it goes.
So it's definitely on now. I can see something here. Like this bar's been moving since you made that first click.
Yeah, we're good. Okay.
Okay. All right, cool.
That's my bad.
Sorry about the technical difficulties. We can go back on after the show and clip the first like 2 minutes of it out, so that's not a big deal. If you've held on this far, we're going to talk about the BRRRR real estate investing strategy now. YouTube can hear me. I guess Facebook, and I'm on my company phone here, my personal cell phone here for Instagram Live, Facebook Live, and of course YouTube. And we've got like, this is insane, guys. We have so many cameras going right now. It's wild. There's like five cameras on right now, which is pretty crazy. Appreciate all the hearts. Thanks, guys. Yeah, so the real estate investing strategy that is, I basically talked about the BRRRR last week on my channel. If you didn't see that Saturday's video, it currently has a 100% like ratio. So 150 likes and not one dislike. Don't be that person that does that. But anyway, it didn't get a huge traction from a general audience beyond my subscriber base. But the 1,500 people that watched it got a lot of value from it, talking about the BRRRR. So how do you buy real estate, renovate it, rent it out, and then go back, get an appraisal on it, refinance the capital out, and repeat the strategy again by pulling out your down payment and then being able to invest that in another property while still owning that asset with none of your own down payment in it, none of the rental budget still in it, maybe even got paid some money and get cash flow each and every month. That's the real estate strategy on steroids. It's hard to perfect. I'm not going to pretend that it's like anyone can just go ahead and just execute a full BRRRR their first time around. My first property wasn't a full BRRRR. I'm not talking about appreciation. Like a lot of people got lucky and they'll claim they're basically doing a BRRRR because of market appreciation, but the best BRRRRs are done with no market appreciation in a down market. And that requires skill, not luck. And so we're not luck investors here. We're not speculators. We don't buy land and hope it appreciates in value. We buy what we know today. We buy an asset that's worth $1 for 80 cents today, right now, and then we add value to it through strategic plays like renovations and changing tenant profiles and things like that to get the value up and unlock that value out of it. And then we go and reappraise the property with proper appraisal, bring it to a bank, and pull that money out that we've created. We've earned that money. So we earn our down payment back, 100% return on our money day one, and then we collect cash flow afterwards. And that's how you build a really big real estate portfolio really quickly. Now, hard to do. We're going to talk about some of the components, I think, in this episode. I don't even know if I can cover it all in this episode, but maybe you guys can ask questions and we'll kind of go from there. I see some already building up in the comments here. So I'm going to get to the comments in a sec here, but just if you guys are all watching, shoot your questions in, and I'm going to jump between all the platforms and answer the questions about, you might ask me like questions related to the buy, questions related to the renovation, questions related to, how do you get a good appraisal, refinancing, and then maybe even renting questions like, hey, what is a good amount of rent to purchase price I should be looking for? You can ask me questions about anything related to buy, renovating, renting, and then refinancing, and even how you repeat that strategy. Happy to do all of that. So yeah, okay, let's do this. We didn't start till 7:12, and then we had the technical difficulties till 7:15, so I'm gonna probably let this show go till almost 8 o'clock. So just so you guys have a timeline of what the plan is. Yeah, good to see you guys all on from all the platforms. Okay, so I see people jumping in here. We're just gonna skip all the sound stuff because we got that figured out. Do the whole show using sign language. Jeez, that would be wild. No, I don't even know sign language. I know like 10 words from trying to train my daughter how to like communicate before she could talk. But anyway. Okay, everyone can hear now. We're going down here. Sound is good. Mike, I'm saving up to invest in real estate. Where do you recommend keeping the money? The bank, question mark. So Alex, great question. Just as like starting to save up for the down payment to start the BRRRR method. From a savings perspective, I think it's smart to keep your money at least beating inflation. And so I would go in at like a minimum, if your risk level is really low, you didn't want to take any risk at all, risk by risk I mean chance of losing that money in any way, then I think it's Canadian insured banks. CDIC insurance backs the banks if the banks fail up to $100,000. So you'd open a savings account with, say, EQ Bank in Canada or Tangerine Bank, or even Scotiabank had a promotion on where they're paying 3.2% interest promotion on their savings accounts for like 3 to 6 months. Go find one of those promotions and take advantage of them. That's 3%. That's going to beat inflation. It's going to give you a return that at least keep your money growing at a faster rate than inflation is eating the buying power of that money. So that's a minimum. Like that's where you got to keep your emergency funds, your liquid cash, keep it there, right? Then there's like the level up from that when you've built up enough net worth to make it worthwhile. Because if you only have a few $1,000s, I mean, 6% return versus 3% return is not a huge amount of money. We're talking $1,000, $20, $30. So are you really going to go through all that stress to make $20 or $30 more in interest income? It's probably not worth your time. Once you've built up that amount of net worth that it's worthwhile doing, I think then it's time to explore how to invest more smartly. A lot of people come to me and say, Mike, I got $3,000, $5,000. And there's not a lot of those people, but I get enough of those people reaching out. And they're saying, like, what do I do with that money? And to be honest with you, like $5,000 or $10,000 invested, again, at 10% versus 5%, not a huge difference. We're talking like 50 or $100. Like you're better off picking up a side hustle and earning a little bit of extra money than worrying about where you're gonna invest that like $5,000. When we get to like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, $100,000, then it starts to really matter, right? Get you $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $10 million. It becomes so important that a 1% difference on $10 million, if you have a $10 million net worth and you're getting an 8% return versus a 9% return, we're talking 6-figure differences. You need to be spending a lot of your time on that. Like my time needs to be spent mostly on how to maximize my return on my investment, because even 2 or 3 or 4% higher rate of return on my net worth, we're talking 6 figures. If I were to spend that same amount of time trying to save money, I'm going to save a few $100 a month. It's not going to make near the impact it would. So basically, if you're rich, you should be focusing on maximizing returns. If you're just getting started in the journey, I think spending less and then earning more is more important. But great question. I always appreciate these questions here. Yeah, you're take the ETF approach too once you've built up enough savings. That's great as well. You could do a bit of private lending. I don't know a lot of people who want to just borrow like $5,000. Usually they need a little bit larger amount, but there are lots of options where you can get investing that little bit of capital that you have. I wouldn't recommend throwing it in like cryptocurrency or something. By the way, guys, who's been watching the price of Bitcoin? You know how I feel about Bitcoin. Does it cash flow? No. Does it have any intrinsic fundamental value? No. Your only out is to sell it to someone else for more than you bought it for, and it has no intrinsic value. So I'm gonna stay away. I like businesses and things that can generate cash flow for me when I don't even have to sell them. I can hold them and continue to generate return on my money. So anyway, I think that's interesting what's been happening with Bitcoin, but don't throw your money into cryptocurrencies. That's probably not a good thing to do when you have like $2,000 or $5,000 to throw everything in super high risk, non-cash flowing like cryptocurrency type high risk investments. Or do you. I'm not gonna tell you not to do that, but it's up to you at the end of the day. Realize that you could lose everything, and that I wouldn't recommend that as a sound investing strategy. Don't bet at all. Don't bet the farm, right? Do a little bit, maybe 2 to 5% of your net worth in some cryptocurrency or gold and things like that don't necessarily have any cash flow, but could be a good part of a permanent portfolio. Great question, Alex. Next one's, what's the oldest property you've ever purchased, and is getting a newer property important for you if you're willing to work with Century Homes? Okay, so great question, Tommy. Love to see you on, by the way. Oldest house we've ever purchased. I have a house that was originally constructed in 1798 here in London. It was stamped in like 1815 or something, so it's well over 200 years old. It has been a brothel at times. It was a Masonic lodge at one point. Really interesting triplex property that I own, and it's actually not in a bad area at all. The bones of the house have been basically rebuilt, and we've spent a lot of money in maintaining the property and bringing it up to value. Old properties have more problems, so maintenance is higher on older properties. I don't necessarily hate old properties, they just come with their own set of problems, right? So too do new houses. I built a new house and we had many issues in the new house as well. Trades make mistakes, they don't insulate things properly and you get like frosting, or maybe they didn't install the foundation properly. We've seen cracking and leaking, even on new builds. So even new houses can have issues, that old houses might not. Most of the old houses I see that are 200 years old have been rebuilt several times over the decades. And so probably most of the construction of the house is like 30 or 40 years old. Most of the electrical's been updated, plumbing's been updated. So in a lot of cases, the properties I'm buying are in some ways newer than they may appear because someone's renovated them and fixed them up. But great question. What is my thought on new versus old? Again, it depends. For a BRRRR, I would say, because we're talking on the topic of BRRRRs, I think that the older properties tend to have more deferred maintenance, meaning people have not spent the time keeping the properties up. And hey, Canadian Classic, the YouTube channel is just Mike Rosehart. In my description on my Instagram profile, you can just find the link to the channel. Sorry, that's my new channel, is Mike Rosehart Show, which we're live on right now. My main channel is just Mike Rosehart. But yeah, Mike Rosehart Show is the channel we're live on right now for the Mike Rosehart Show. So just type in like Mike Rosehart Show and you'll find it there and you can jump in the chat. But yeah, so we're talking about BRRRR investing, and I think that when you're looking to BRRRR, it's about finding undervalued properties. And older properties tend to have the most deferred maintenance, the most opportunity for things to have broken down on the property. People haven't kept up the eaves trough, the roof, the siding. Inside tenants have been living there for a long time, so they've worn down things like floors and walls potentially, and maybe they haven't been updated in 10 or 15 years, but a brand new build, it's hard for it to have been worn down because everything's pretty new on it. So, you know, comparing new to old, new properties in my area trade at a much higher multiple. So a brand new building of the exact same square footage will sell for much more than a property of the exact, if two buildings were identical, and one was built in 1900 and one was built in to one where they just, they're like, I only want to buy 10 years old or newer. Like, I just don't want anything old. I'm like, what if the house was literally rebuilt? Like, everything was brand new in it. Well, it wasn't constructed that date. I don't trust that. So there's a lot of people who are investors that are very conservative. And what I mean by that is they're afraid to take any risk and they feel like old buildings are risky. And so as a result, you get a discount on older properties. That's why most of my portfolio is older. I have a lot of properties in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, 60s, 70s construction, right? And the reason for that is I have some properties in the 80s and 90s too, but the reason for that is there's a discount. And I'll buy these properties, I know I can fix them up, and the market is discounting the renovation at a much higher cost than it's gonna cost me to actually do the work. That's where you smell a BRRRR, right? I'm buying a property that's needs $30,000 in work, and the market is telling me, based on comparables, based on income approach, often I use comparables, that if I put in $30,000 of work, I will unlock $80,000, $90,000 in value. I'll buy a $200,000 house that I know is worth $300,000 after I spend $25,000 on it, and I can unlock $75,000 in created net equity. That's opportunity for a BRRRR, effectively. You go back, you rent it out, you refinance it, get an appraisal loan at the $300,000 now, and put a new mortgage on it, 80% loan to value. Very important to pulling out that capital and moving on to the next project. If you're buying where you're adding no value, and the BRRRR is basically a value add strategy, right? It's the idea that you spend more time on this project and take on a more difficult project than, say, a turnkey rental where you're doing nothing to the property. You may have to fight to get tenants out. You likely will have to renovate the property. That's what the BRRRR is. You're gonna have to spend time managing and at least coordinating trades to get the work done. And if you're not smart about following each process within the BRRRR properly, like buying smart, renovating smart, because a lot of people don't renovate smart, they spend way too much. I was talking to a guy who spent $90,000 on his basement renovation. And it was a one-bedroom apartment, $90,000. That's all they did. Over like 60 days, they spent 90 grand. I was like, wow. I mean, you know what, you go in and honestly, like, construction's expensive. You get a professional company with proper insurance and all these types of things to come in, and basements are getting quoted out at $50,000 right now. And so if you can find a way to get it done for 25 or 30, you get the difference in value. And in fact, sometimes you get even more than the difference in value, because now with this basement apartment, it's in a different comp league, as in it would comp out against single families, and now you've converted it to duplex. And not only do you get the money you've added in renovation back, but you've changed the class of the property from, say, a single family to a duplex, and maybe the duplexes are comping at a 30% premium in that market because people are really valuing that. And so you have to identify in your market what is that strategy you want to be using to unlock that value. But the key is having a plan from start on acquisition, because you make most of your money in the buy, and then a strategy to unlock that value. So yeah, great questions. Okay, next question. Let's go down the list here. Renovating question. Okay, so we're on the reno topic of the BRRRR, right? Because you have buy, renovate, you want to rent it out, refinance it, and then repeat that strategy. So we're talking about the renovating. What are some tips on renovations? That's very generic and hard for me to answer. What are some of the strategic renovations you complete? Okay, so I think we were trying to ask is, where should you spend your money on a BRRRR? And it depends is often the answer. There's no one clear-cut answer I could give that's like, hey, this is the place to spend money. But depending on your area and the comps, I often see finishing basements as an added amount of living square footage that increases the value at a lot higher rate than the cost to do that. So often adding bedrooms and bathrooms and basements, sometimes kitchens and basements, and making separate secondary dwelling units. I found those secondary dwelling unit and duplex, triplex conversions have been very fruitful. We've done several of those and they've done very, very well for us. I think that it depends. Refacing kitchens tends to have a great return on your money. Typically get 150% return on your money. The best thing you can do is painting, especially if you can paint yourself. painting yourself has a 250% on average return on cost. So painting a nice, great color, don't go with like crazy like red or like green or drastic colors. You don't want those vibrant colors. And the beige is out. Everyone's into the gray tone family now. So picking a really good color, and this is where people make mistakes. I've talked to people like, my parents, for instance, they would love to paint weird colors. And they think by painting, they're going to get 250% ROI. In some cases, painting can cost you negative ROI. So that's why I say it depends. Depends on if you're smart about how you renovate. Picking colors that are going to work with the property, make it feel more airy, more modern, things like that. But kitchens, baths, flooring, painting, cosmetic work tends to add a lot of value. But there are always exceptions. There was a property once where it had an egress escape issue. People were afraid to take on something like that. We can cut in 3 windows in a day for $4,000, put in 3 egress windows, right? So that was an example where I only spent $4,000 and I increased the value $40,000. Now it was a legal triplex in this case because I put these escape windows in. People thought that was really scary. They didn't know how to cut into a foundation and add windows in. There was a room that had no window at all, so we had to cut in and put a lentil to support the weight. That kind of thing might seem scary, but it's like $4,000 or $5,000 in like 1 to 2 days work. That could be something that the market is saying, hey, this adds a ton of value because people are afraid to take this project on, right? And so it's finding that arbitrage opportunity. I call it retail arbitrage. That's the smartest way to buy. It's to find that thing in the market that's not being valued. And I think you get that by seeing hundreds of properties and going to look at many, many properties. The key is to go in, buy a property, and find comparables for your ARV or your after renovated value that are really high. And find those really high comparables. There's a good amount of difference. If there's not enough difference, you're buying a property that's 200 that's comping out around it at 225. Even if you have to spend $5,000 on renovations, there's not a huge spread there to pull a lot of money out. You can at least pull your down payment out, maybe half your down payment out, and leave the renovation budget in. That's okay. That's still a partial BRRRR, and a lot of my properties have been partial BRRRRs, especially when you don't count on appreciation. A partial BRRRR is still good. A partial BRRRR should be like a 50% return on your money. Where in this world can you get a 50% return on your money at this risk level? Buying cash flowing safe Canadian real estate. Like your downside is like zero. The worst case scenario is you don't get the appraisal you wanted and you end up with not being able to pull your down payment out. And you're stuck with like, I've only created $20,000 in equity. Very worst case scenario, I would imagine after doing all that renovation work, you'd likely have like a 20 or 30% return on your money just from cash flow. That's like the worst case scenario here with a BRRRR. It's kind of hard to screw it up. If you bought smart, you're in a really good position from a risk management perspective. So I like the BRRRR because when you buy smart, you have a hard time losing money unless you really screwed something up or you didn't actually buy smart. But if you start with buying smart and renovating smart, you can't really lose money. Even if you had bad tenants placed in there after the BRRRR, all of that is recoverable because there's enough margin there. So great question. I love that one. That was good. Okay. Did I miss any questions on Instagram? Nope. We're good on Instagram. Okay. Facebook, did I miss any questions over here? No questions on Facebook? Nope. Okay. Now all the questions on YouTube. Okay, so scroll up here. So Alex, I hope that answered your question sufficiently. If it didn't, jump in the comments and let me know if you had further follow-up questions on how to reno smartly. I think the key is just making a really good renovation plan at the start. Every time I go through a plan of what I'm going to do at the property, I say, does this add resale value? And I research that. So for instance, like replacing the sink, replacing the toilet, doing the floors, doing the painting. I go through line by line. And some things, despite being hideous, don't hurt the value. Like you might not like the paneling in the basement, but you know what? Painting that paneling and just leaving it, painting it nice neutral gray and leaving it, much cheaper and often very similar ROI. Oh, there goes Facebook Live. I guess the phone disconnected from the power source.
Crap.
Fun times. Yep, completely disconnected. Okay, so we'll go back live on Facebook, I guess, after. So we're on Instagram now. I guess the power cord disconnected and we lost. Stupid company phone was dead when I went to go grab it. No one charged it, so that's what happens. Anyway, we're still live for those people who are watching on Facebook. Hopefully they'll, like, maybe you can click on, give them a link to the YouTube, I guess, for the people who find that stream. Like, to watch the rest of this, go on YouTube or Instagram. Okay, so for those loyal people who are still watching, what was I talking about? I was talking about renovations and what is a smart renovation. I guess it depends is the real answer. And I wish I had a better answer to give you, but I don't. Okay, so Jordan Clermont asked, just recently purchased my first duplex. in a rough shape, what's the worst case scenario to expect on a fire inspection in the City of London, financially speaking? So Jordan, so duplex, you buy a duplex. I don't know if it's legal. I don't know what the zoning's like. I don't know if it had a rental license on it previously. I need a bit more context to speak on that specifically. But London has a rental licensing program that is very complex and very hard to maneuver through. And every fire inspection and property standards inspection that you get can be a little different. I've seen guys walk through and say, nope, totally good. And then had another inspector walk through and had a totally different, he's like, this railings aren't the code and this and that. It's pretty crazy in London. It's getting a lot, like I know Kitchener-Waterloo has similar rules. Because we have 1 in 4 in London, 1 in 4 people in London is a student. And a lot of international students and things like that coming here, a lot of money being injected into London. Because of that, we have a huge student population. There's, I think that's part of the fuel why the older people in the city voted for the rental licensing program. And it's mostly the older people that voted on the council. It's mostly the older folks who have an older demographic that voted for them that voted the rental licensing program in. And they mostly did that because people, landlords, us, landlords, we were out there converting properties, adding 6, 7, 8 bedrooms, and they wanted to cap that. They didn't like the way we were treating a lot of our properties. And like most of the slumlords, they gave us I do a really good job of keeping my units up. And unfortunately, I get a bad rep because some slumlords have not taken care of their properties. Now we are forced to bring things to a new bar, a new level, and the slumlords still don't have their rental licenses anyway. And so we end up getting punished. But I'm not going to go on a rant about that. I'm going to help you answer your question about the fire inspection. So what is a worst case scenario? One example I've experienced, and without enough information on the property, I could ask you follow-up questions like, and I've done this for people before, I've actually gone and done consultations where I go through the property with the eye of a fire inspector and the eye of a property standards inspector, because there's 2 separate inspections you have to do in London, Ontario to get the license. And I'll tell you the things they're going to be looking for. So I'll point to things like egress window size. I'm going to point to things like means of escape, railing height, spindle width and difference between fire separation between units, interconnected smoke alarm testing, carbon monoxide detectors. Ceiling height is a big one. You need 6'5" clearance all the way out. So you have any bulkheads on a 1.5-story building or in a basement where you're basically on a means of escape out, it's below 6'5", you will get an infringement. They will require you to comply, either by digging down or somehow reconstructing, and it is very expensive. In some cases, they make you say, I will not rent out the basement because the basement has one area that's less than 6'5". It's very bad. The good news is this. There's a minor variance council that exists that you can appeal to, and you can take this appeal to the court. 3 out of 4 cases get overturned. So I have an example of a property with 6'2" ceiling height. Don't call me when I'm live. I hate when people call me on my phone when I'm live. Sorry about the pause. It's a huge pet peeve of mine. So what was I saying? There's a council that you can apply to where they'll overturn the decision of the property standards inspector. And so you can basically get exceptions. For instance, I had a property that had one area that was below, it was like 6'2", and I'm like, look, the person who lives there is like 5'8", and there are multiple means of escape. There's a straight walkout basement, and there are 2 egress windows. It's fine. And they, that's an example of, I've seen there are many precedents where they will agree with that. And so the inspector can't do anything. They have to write you up, but then you can take it to a minor variance council and appeal it and get it overturned and get your rental license and be good to go. Often previous rental licenses will help you determine whether you get the number of bedrooms you're looking for. I'll need more specifics to go into any further depth, but I'd be happy to, if you had an offline conversation, you want to chat about that, be happy to do that. I don't love doing them, but I do the consultations for investors where I'll walk through and say, here, these are areas I think we will get nailed by a fire inspector or a property standards inspector. So then when they come through, we'll know what to look for. Other times though, you might want to leave just one little thing. Like I'll often just, this is stupid, but I'll take like a CO2 detector. This is like an evil little tip. You might just take like a CO2 detector, unplug it, leave one in your, like have a brand new in your car, and they'll be like, hey, there's no CO2 detector in the basement. And they got to write you out for something, and you're like, oh wait, I actually have a brand new one in the car, let me just go plug that in. And he'll clear the deficiency while you're standing there. And they still got to get you for some things. They weren't looking for everything else. They're focused on that thing that you didn't have. And anyway, my point being, think about when you're going to a rental licensing process, think about the pros and cons. It is very tough. I think it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. I wouldn't go out and chase the city. I would have them ask you to get the license, but I'm not going to say that. I'm just going to stop. I'm not going to say anything publicly about that. The program is terrible. The intent of the program is good, but it doesn't really achieve what I think they're trying to achieve. I think they're more using it as a revenue stream now because it's $350 to apply, and then every reinspection costs money, and you have to continue to pay every single year rental licensing fees. So I'm anti rental licensing programs, especially in London, but we maneuver through that. Thankfully, I have the expertise to navigate through those waters, and I think you'll be okay. If I had more information, I could share how you could navigate those waters. So Chuck Norris asked, I have no network or idea how to get private deals. Should I just look for cheap homes on MLS and fix it up a bit and try to get 1% rule? So it depends on your market. 1% rule in my market is really good. In certain markets, it's almost unattainable. In like the Midwest United States or in small towns, 2% rule is possible. I remember like growing up in Sarnia, there was like 2% rule properties all the time. So in smaller markets, totally possible. You go to like Sault Ste. Marie, you get 2% rule all day. So then 1% rule would be a terrible property there. So there's no perfect rule of thumb. In the larger towns where most people live, 1% rule is pretty good. Guarantees you a pretty good return on your money. Private deals are overstated. A lot of wholesalers right now are peddling crap. I'm on a lot of the lists from like Ottawa to Toronto, getting some from Vancouver, people are sending me, and I'm looking up comps and I'm like, these private wholesale deals are overpriced. People are bringing you wholesale deals that are near market value after the wholesale fee. They're glorified real estate agents trading in real estate. So be careful with private deals. Private deals are not necessarily the best deals. Some of my best deals, probably half my deals now have been private off market and half my deals have been on market. And some of my better BRRRRs have actually been MLS. Really stale listings or fresh listings that just came out that I was able to not lock up, that were mispriced, or even pocket listings. Honestly, like, don't be afraid to go on the Realtor.ca or MLS. A lot of great deals there. I'm locking up right now, guys, a 7-plex in downtown London with a commercial component, 17 bedrooms for $680,000. It has the potential to be a 10 cap, commercial property, right? People are telling me people are looking at similar type properties for $1 million. I just picked that up on MLS. It's been on there for months, right? People are afraid of some of the work with the property, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe it's got bad tenants in it. Now I'm gonna have to turn some of the tenants over and get the rents way up. They did a terrible job advertising, no photos. The income was all understated. A lot of 3-bedroom apartments, they listed as 1-bedroom apartments. That makes a huge difference. There's little things like that make a huge difference. Bad listings, there's a ton of them. Like half of agents are lazy and bad. Take advantage of that fact. There are a lot of wholesalers now that are really smart. They look up the comps, they know the value, they give it to you at 95 cents on the dollar. There are a ton of wholesale deals I'm seeing that are not BRRRR potential at all. Stop hunting for the private deals. People keep saying like I have to find private deals. No, there's a ton on MLS. I'm locking them up right now. I'm doing it. Like I just bought 2 off MLS myself. I bought a triplex / duplex, not in a great area. This one's not downtown London. This one's on Adelaide Street, but in London for $162,000. Multiple offer situation. I won out over the other offers. I still underpaid what it's worth. It's going to rent for about $2,700 a month, $2,500 to $2,700 a month, I think, when we're all done with it. Bought it for $162,000 in London, Ontario. MLS, Realtor.ca, right? I can tell you about private deals I bought that are not that good. My property is 16, 17 bedrooms downtown London with a parking lot, like the beautiful property, walking distance to everything. Again, I had someone just bring me a 4-plex, a private deal that was priced higher than this 7-plex with 30% less income. And someone bought that. Some investor bought that private deal thinking they got a great deal. So just be careful, guys. Yeah, that's gonna be my 2 cents on that. I still love private deals, by the way. There are tons of good private deals out there, but there are way more bad ones than there are good ones. So just be careful. Just be careful with private deals. And yeah, I'm gonna end that tangent now. But when you're looking to buy real estate in the BRRRR, it doesn't have to be a private deal. I've done a lot of BRRRRs on MLS. You have to see an angle that no one else sees. You have to have information that no one else has. Thankfully, agents are really bad, and you can be really good at finding the information to then go in and dig deeper and find that opportunity. That's how I keep finding deals on MLS, right? Like I said, half our deals, Realtor.ca, and I'm burning a lot of them. So yeah, don't discount Realtor.ca. Great question, though. I'm glad that I got into that tangent. Chuck Norris, hopefully you can realize that you don't need a good network. You just need a good realtor, probably, or even just become that good investor yourself. I think in the beginning it's hard to develop those skills. So in your local market, I don't know if you invest in the US or wherever you invest, find a good realtor there that knows their stuff. That's really, really important because there are a lot of bad realtors out there who don't have the experience in real estate investing. And even the ones that do have the experience, they're selling their clients turnkey garbage. And so just, you have to really know what you're looking for to unlock the value. And I think that skill is probably only like 10% of realtors have that skill. So 9 out of 10 realtors probably aren't the realtor for you. But again, don't be afraid to reach out to a ton of realtors because they might have pocket listings for you they can send your way, or they might know of an opportunity. And that's how you build a network, is by reaching out. Good question. Okay, next question. Hi, Michael, I have 2 questions. Please answer them one after another from a perspective of a new guy who has no experience in buying a house yet. Okay, so I'm glad you stuck around for this. I'll answer those questions one after another. So 1, could you please explain how does cash out refinance work? Can't grasp how you can ask for a mortgage on a house on which you already have a mortgage. Are you going to the same lender? Okay, so I'm going to answer this as someone who's experienced and explain how it works, but pretending that you don't know anything. So the first part of your question was explain how the cash refinance works. So the idea is this, and hopefully answers the second part of your question. You buy a property, right, that's undervalued. You often close on it using a HELOC, cash, or private financing. But in many cases, you can also just throw a mortgage on it. In a lot of cases, I've done a 1-year fixed mortgage or a 6-month open term mortgage. 80% loan to value. Imagine you're buying a $200,000 property as a simple example. If you had to put 20% down, that's $40,000 down payment plus closing costs. We'll call it $43,000, $44,000 down payment on your $200,000 property, as well as a renovation budget you'll need to keep in consideration. Now you're going to ask, okay, so I put that money out, Mike. How do I get all that my money back? What do I do? So now we're going to get this property fixed up. We're going to renovate it, add value like I talked about in really smart and strategic ways. And then we're going to take this property, right? We're going to rent it out to great tenants, make an net NOI, a net operating income statement, right? So basically write down all your income, all your expenses, show that to an appraiser. You've convinced an appraiser now. So you bought this property for $200,000, you've added some value to it. You get it reappraised at $280,000, $300,000, let's just say for easy numbers. Now you go back to the bank with that appraisal and you say, I'd like to put a mortgage on the property for 80% loan to value. Maybe go to a different bank. Usually I go to a different bank because the refinance on a property is covered by the other bank. They want to buy your business, so they'll often pay for the appraisal and legal costs to move the mortgage over. You'll only have mortgage breakout costs. If you did an open 6-month mortgage or a HELOC on the property or a line of credit on the property, I've done this a ton of times, or you used private money to borrow to close, or you use cash to close, your penalties to break the old mortgage out, right, are not very high. 3 months interest penalty is the most. Often it's less than that. If it's an open term, you can get away with no fees at all. So what you do is you get 80% of the $300,000 new appraised value, or a mortgage of $240,000. Quick math in my head. Yeah, that's right, $240,000. So you have a new mortgage for $240,000. You bought the first property for $200,000, so your mortgage on that was $160,000. The mortgage company will write a check for $240,000 to the lawyer now, right? You get reapproved, you get a mortgage on it for $240,000. Your lawyer will write a check to the old mortgage company. If it's the same company, then the company will literally just send you the difference. But effectively, they'll send the money to the lawyer. Lawyer sends it back to the original mortgage, pays off the original mortgage, plus any breakout fees. Often, if you're smart, you got into a contract that didn't have a lot of breakout fees because you knew you were going to BRRRR it. But let's say you didn't know you were going to BRRRR it, and you got to pay breakout fees. 3 months interest differential is the typical mortgage breakout with the big 5. So you may have a penalty of a few $1,000s. But let's say it's $160,000, call it a $5,000 penalty, worst case, that's pretty high. So $165,000 penalty, you got $240,000 just written to you as an advance of the new mortgage. So they're gonna pay off the old mortgage for $165,000, leaves $35,000 plus another $40,000, so is that right, $75,000? So they're gonna pay off the old mortgage for you, and then they're gonna write you a check for $75,000. Now, if you renovated for 20 grand, your down payment was 43, I think I said, you just pull out your entire down payment and your renovation budget back. You have no money in the property at all. You still own it. There's a mortgage on it for $240,000. You bought a smart BRRRR, so it cash flows still with a new mortgage on it. You're getting cash flow every month, and there's still $60,000 in created equity sitting in the property. Hopefully everyone followed along with that. I can repeat myself if it wasn't clear, but totally doable. Not a problem at all to discharge another mortgage and put a new one on there. I've seen it done also where people will get a new appraisal and put a second mortgage on, uninterrupting the first mortgage. So they'll put a second mortgage on for another $80,000 and get that cash advanced to them when the mortgage is put onto it. That's how it works. Hopefully that cleared it up for you. I'd love to see in the comments if you wanted to follow up on that. But the second part of your question was, could you, oh, I guess that was all, there it is. Okay, so would you pay for canceling the first mortgage or have an open mortgage in the first place? I'm going for a conventional mortgage from a big bank. Yes, you would pay a cancellation if you didn't negotiate an open mortgage. If you plan to do a BRRRR over 1 year, you could do a 1 year fixed term. There's some really attractive 1 year fixed rates right now, like 2%, 2.2%. So you get great interest rates on a 1 year fixed. At the end of the 1 year term, you can renew in the last 60 days. So if your renovation took 10 months, or let's say the renovation took 6 months, then you got an appraisal, and then you went back and you threw a mortgage on in the last 30 or 60 days, there'd be no breakout fee. So 1 year fixed mortgage is great for a BRRRR. 2 year fixed mortgage is great for a BRRRR too. Open 6 month mortgages are great. HELOCs and lines of credits on properties are great for BRRRRs. Closing in cash and of course, just borrowing the money as well is another good way to BRRRR. You can still BRRRR even if you do a 5 year fixed. You just got to pay a bigger breakout penalty. It sucks because it eats into your cash out refi, but I mean, it's better than not pulling the money out at all. That's probably the worst situation where you got money stuck in a property, not doing anything for you, but saving you the interest on your mortgage at 3%. So all that equity is just sitting there doing not a lot for you. 3% return is not great. I think you can do a lot better, pull that money out and invest it in another property and get a much higher return on your money. So hopefully that answered your question. Okay, so Mike, seems like more and more friends and people I talk to are worried about overvaluation. Do you worry about valuation? Do you feel like you're getting a lot of value on purchasing now? So William, that's a great question. I love that question. So William, and by the way, I love seeing you on every single episode. I appreciate the support. I think that overvaluation, so we're talking about in my market in like Southwestern Ontario, maybe even London, Ontario, we're thinking about what is the value of a property? How do you determine value on real estate? This is a tricky one. I've seen people come at it from the approach of like income to house price. So how affordable is property relative for the average person? I've seen people come at it from rent price to price of property. And I've seen many other approaches. People use many other metrics to determine, other economic factors to determine whether or not real estate is overvalued. Real estate is tied strongly to rent prices, which has again been mostly flat or upward trending since the beginning of time. Rents have never in Canada or the United States ever dropped. On average, rents have increased every year roughly at the rate of inflation. Unfortunately, I wish rents would go higher than inflation. Some years they have, but typically we see rents kind of trail up at inflation. If we were in a huge deflationary period, we could see rents drop. That'd be a whole different situation. Canada would be in we'd have bigger problems if we were in a big deflationary period. And I don't think that's going to happen for a number of reasons. But my thoughts are, yes, the market has a ton of overvalued inventory in it. I think there are tons of pockets in London that make no financial sense as an investor. Now, I think those houses, from a build cost perspective, make sense. Like building cost is way up. Costs 200% more to build a house than it did even 5 years ago. So things are way more expensive than they were. Lumber, labor for trades, all that has gone way up. That has driven the cost of new builds up a lot. For instance, in London, new builds are a lot of them in Northwest London, selling for $750,000 and they're renting for $2,000 a month. They don't even cover people are renting these properties for less than the mortgage payment. So they're paying out of their pocket property taxes, insurance, potentially utilities, reliance, rental heater for the water tank, maintenance, groundskeeping, everything. And they're losing money. These properties, in my opinion, are signaling overvaluation for that reason. Cap rates are too low. At the same time, in the same market, London's a big market, so it's hard to say London's just one market, but across the city, I'm seeing opportunities to buy detached properties at below replacement cost. I'm seeing older properties where I can buy at $150,000, $175,000. I'm seeing properties, even large, big triplexes, like $400,000, $500,000. That's 7-plex that I'm picking up that's got 17 bedrooms at $680,000. The land and building alone to build that again would be much more than $680,000. So I'm buying at way below replacement cost, and I feel like there's still a ton of value there. And in a recession, I'm going to still be able to sell it for what I bought it for. But if I had bought a property that was an overvalued metric, like near Western University, near the Richmond Gates, there's a ton of properties there that are like 5-bedroom student rentals renting for $3,000 a month. They're selling for $500,000, $600,000. They barely cover the costs on the property. I think the rent to price ratio is way out of whack. People are international investors that have come in, they like the area, and they've paid a premium for that area. That does not, like, real estate has fundamental value based on the cost approach to rebuild the building, the value of the land, which is determined by like the economy, and what it can rent for. So those are the factors that matter to me. What did it cost to build it, and what can it rent for? If it's can rent for less than it costs to maintain the property, that's a bad investment, and that's risky. And then we're gonna get into speculation plays. I'm not a speculator. Cash flow, arbitrage investors weather any recession. So my strategy works really well even in a recession. So for that reason, I'm still buying. That was a good little tangent about valuation. I wish I was looking at this camera the whole time. Maybe we can use some of that somewhere. Angie says, to maximize the rent per square foot, why not squeeze in as many one-bedroom units in a single-family house? Imagine you had unlimited parking and put a fire-rated door between units to get around zoning bylaw. Angie, yeah, I mean, theoretically, you could do something like that. It's tough. The problem is that in a lot of areas in Toronto, Vancouver, and London, single-family houses are more valuable than multi-family converted type houses. Not purpose-built, but like where people have converted to a bunch of little apartments. I think that micro units is what you're talking about. There are buildings that have been converted to micro units where you have several individual units, right? In a building that was not purposely built this way. You've converted it. The problem is it kills resale value, and doing that sometimes makes the property less valuable than it was before. You put like 5 individual bedroom apartments in a house, and now the buyer pool is very small. Only a certain investor is okay with that. The other thing is some people don't want to, like a lot of houses have trouble being converted that way. Their layout doesn't lend itself out very well to those types of conversions. And if the city got in there and you're doing like a triplex and you've got like 3 kitchens and stuff, they may fine you. Duplex, you can get away with it, I think, opening the door up. They can say, okay, you got 2 kitchens. I can understand this is a single family house. But you got multiple units start going on and a building inspector gets in there, not a building inspector, sorry, a property standards inspector or a fire inspector, you might have some issues there. You're opening yourself up to risk. And so that's why people don't do it. It also costs a lot of money to convert to multifamily. And the single families are trading at a huge premium right now. So because the single families trade at such premiums right now, it doesn't necessarily make sense in some cases. Yeah, there are plays though where that could make sense. There are some buildings, not a lot of buildings that wouldn't work on, but there's some buildings I can think of where that play would work. It would cost a lot of money and be a lot of effort to convert to say like a single family house to like a 4-plex, but have doors connected between them, fire rated doors. I mean, yeah, it's a play. You could use it maybe in a market. Often though, it's interesting. I was looking at a property recently where I was looking at converting to a duplex, and it was a single family. And the rent as a 5-bedroom, so as a 5-bedroom student rental with 1 living room and 1 kitchen, it could rent for $2,500 a month. But as a duplex, you had to add 2 living rooms, 2 kitchens, so you lost bedrooms. And in fact, it was like a 2-bedroom up and a 1+1 down now. The rent was less as a duplex than as a single family rented to students or on Airbnb. So in many cases, adding more units can give you less rent per square foot. Sometimes more bedrooms just add more value, right? And so it just really does depend. The more units you make, the more living space you have to have, because you have to have a living room to go with that, bedroom, and you have to have a kitchen for them and their own bathroom. So that sometimes sharing a bathroom, you get, if 2 bedrooms share 1 bathroom, that'll get you more rent than having each one have their own bathroom. It just depends. You have to look at the cost to convert and the area and things like that. So it varies. It does depend a lot on the area, but good question. Please share your opinion with illegal units. If I make a basement a legal unit, what should I know to do proper refinancing? Okay, so an illegal unit. What is an illegal unit these days? With the secondary dwelling bylaws that now exist in the municipalities around Ontario, because Ottawa's pushed down some rulings that we now want more affordable housing. So things like lane houses are being more supported now. Secondary dwelling units like basements are being allowed now if you meet building codes and fire codes. So I think the only way it's illegal is if the fire code is not met or the property standards codes are not met. For instance, imagine a 6-foot ceiling height. That can never be a legal unit unless you underpin and dig down. So what do I think about those units? I think that appraisers will look very negatively upon those types of units. But how do you navigate it? Maybe position it as a single family house. Like open it up between the units. You might get a higher valuation. Look at the comps in the area. Are other properties that had illegal suites in them more valuable than single families? So it just depends. Sometimes I take a duplex and I convert it back to a single family and I get a better refi, a better BRRRR. So it just depends. Oftentimes I'm adding more units and adding more bedrooms, but not always. There are exceptions to every rule. It is very property specific, and I think that's why having an expert realtor or an expert, JV partner or something is really important, because that expertise adds a lot of value, really, and will add a bit of safety and security to your plan. But it's funny. As a realtor now, right? It's very different than when I was before, when I was just an investor. Before, as an investor, I was so used to being an expert myself that I didn't value realtors in this. Like, I valued realtors for bringing me the deal, but I didn't value their expertise because I had the expertise myself. But it was interesting, when I was just getting started, I relied on everything the realtor said. I drank from that bowl of knowledge. And so it's interesting as your journey progresses, just as a random tangent, that as you become an expert yourself, you can rely on yourself. But in the beginning, you need to rely on expertise of people around you. And so that would be my recommendation. I did a video a while back. You go to my oldest videos, you'll see a video called How to Get a Rockstar Appraisal. That's a good video to watch on how to walk an appraiser through a property, some of the things that I include to get good appraisals. The video is like over a year old, but still a really good video. Check that one out. It's my recommendation. Hey Mike, updates on your business flips. So Robert, so we're still taking down that beast in Toronto. It should be closing any time now. It's been such an endeavor. We're getting like a full audit done by a Big Four accounting firm. Like, the banks required a lot of additional paperwork, so we've had to delay. I'm working on some other business acquisitions, and I can't talk about them because I'm under non-disclosure right now. But good. Business flipping takes a long time. It's not as quick as real estate. To do your due diligence properly on buying a business, you should spend several months going through the process, financing. It should take you 3 to 6 months to buy a business, and then another year or two to turn it around. It takes time. So business flipping is not a get rich quick. You can make a lot of money. You can build strong cash flow. You can turn businesses around, but it's not really a quick. I wouldn't call it quick. Quick's a red flag. If someone's bought a business and is selling it quickly, that's a red flag. It's a slow, strong wealth building strategy where you can get a great return on your investment and diversify outside of real estate, I think, where you can have full control. With public equities, you don't necessarily have full control. You're betting on management. Buying businesses yourself and putting people in place, you have control. You can hire and fire. If I was rich enough, I'd just buy publicly traded companies and buy myself a board seat. But I'm just not at that level, so I have to buy smaller companies. But it's been going well. I've got so much on the go. It's not even funny. Not even funny. So stressed. We got this new real estate team and everything else going on. It's just so many different irons in the fire. I'm pushing myself at all ends. My wife is 40 weeks pregnant, so number 2 is about to join us anytime now. So that's Austin's question. What's baby number 2's name? I'm not going to say right now, but stay tuned. I have a name picked out, and so you'll have to stay tuned the next week when my new second child is born. New baby. Baby Rosehart number 2. So stay tuned for that, guys. It's going to be, I may go offline for a little while during that time because, babies wake up every hour and a half to 2 hours, and I also work like a dog trying to manage all these businesses. So stay with me and be patient through that. Also, best book on renos. I don't have a good book on renos. I use Google. Google's been my best friend. YouTube and Google. Google, and then eventually leading to a YouTube video. I've watched houses be rebuilt on YouTube. HGTV used to be a great one that I used to watch back in the day. Just Google. I can't think of any good books right now, but there are a ton, depending on the task you're trying to take on, I think that you can Google the answer to whatever it is you're trying to take down. And that's the beauty of the internet, guys. 30 years ago, you had to go to a library and try to find a book, and you could never find the answer to your question. Now I can figure out how to pour a foundation in 10 minutes online, right? I can watch a video, watch another video to corroborate the expert's opinion on how it's done, watch another video, and then read an article on building code, Ontario Building Code, and compare them, right? The Ontario Building Code is probably the best dry read. I've read dozens and dozens of pages of the Ontario Building Code, and that's a dry read, but would give you really good understanding of everything to do with renovating properties to code. It wouldn't necessarily tell you how to do it strategically to add value, but it would tell you how to get the renovations done. That's an important piece. You have to know what it costs to renovate something, what's involved, as well as how it adds value to the property. So knowing comparables in the area and saying, hey, how much value does this one thing add? And you look at the data, get a realtor to go help you look at the data to compare, say, a 3-bedroom house in the area versus a 4-bedroom house in the area. Does that extra bedroom add $17,000 in value, $25,000 in value? And at a certain point, it's diminishing returns, right? 8 bedrooms versus 9 bedrooms, no more value. In fact, sometimes negative value, right? So it just depends on the buyer pool and the property in the area. Going from like a 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom to a 4-bedroom adds a ton of value to a 5-bedroom. After a certain point, diminishing returns on that value. Bathrooms add a lot of value right now. People love bathrooms. 1 bathroom versus 2-bathroom houses, ton of valuation difference by adding a second bathroom to a property.
I mean, I usually hang out in my bathroom anyways, right?
People just don't like to share bathrooms. Nice joke, but like people actually don't still like to share bathrooms now. Back in the day, everyone would like share like the bath, they didn't care. But now everyone's like, I need my own bathroom. Like all the master bedrooms now have ensuites. That wasn't even a thing like 30 years ago. No one had an ensuite, but now everyone has ensuites, right? And everyone wants a guest bathroom, like a half bath powder. So if you look at new build construction, you can see that everyone's building like 3-4 baths now. Just a change, right? Really wealthy houses have more baths than beds. Like a 6-bedroom house would have like 9 baths. That's how you can tell it's super luxury. Like mansions, right? Most mansions like 10 bedrooms have like 15 bathrooms. Well, because then you have a guest coming over, they need to have their own bathroom. And then if you're having a party, you don't want to give the guest bathroom away. So they need their own bathroom for the party. And then like, what if there's more than one more than one person using the bathroom? You need 2 bathrooms. You're having a pool party. And then like you need an ensuite. And then you might need a kid's bathroom. And all of a sudden, like you got so many bathrooms. You're like, my house is so big, I don't want to walk across the house because it's a mansion. So like if you're in the west wing, do you want to go all the way to the east wing to use the guest bathroom? So you need a guest bathroom in the east wing and the west wing. So that's when you get to mansions. You gotta have so many bathrooms. But anyway, that was a tangent that most people don't need to worry about. Why do the rental part? Why not just buy cheap homes, rent them out, and immediately move on the next? So Chuck, that has worked. I've BRRRR'd with 3 R's before. I have. We just bought a property for $200,000, $199,999, and it appraised like right after closing. We just rented it out, showed them the rents on this property that it was like vacant, did nothing to it, rented it out, and got a valuation. I think our appraisal was $325,000. So bought it $200, reappraised at $325 day one. So we bought it in cash and threw a mortgage on it right after we closed. If I went to the appraiser on day one, they would have looked at the purchase price, and then they would have just locked in appraisal at purchase price. But if you go after, and they can't tell how much you bought it for because it's a private sale or whatever, it wasn't registered, and your lawyer can help you register a property for $1. There's a way to do it, so they can't tell you what you bought it for. And they have to use comps. They have to do their job, right? If it's not a purchase, they'll have to actually do their job and get comps. If it's a purchase, they can just use the purchase price and then justify the purchase price in the contract, which like people sometimes will fake contracts to get higher valuations when they're buying. I've seen people do this kind of strategy. I don't recommend it, but it's been done. And then there's like cashback type mortgages do the same thing, which has been done as a gray area. But yes, to answer your question, you could skip the renovation. Oftentimes you have to, like if those properties were on the public market and people knew about them, they would just buy them up, right? So those types of properties, I encounter like 6 or 8 of those a year maybe at best. And I'm like, that means that 10% of the properties I come by are instant BRRRRs on their own. The rest, you have to add value to them in some way. So oftentimes you need the renovation to add the value. I mean, if you can go find me buy after buy after buy that I can just BRRRR right away without renovating, that's the ideal. I would love that. There are lots of ways to add value. Sometimes placing tenants adds value. We like bought one property and evicted the tenants out and put tenants in at higher rents. Boom, the rent rolls way up and increase the value. Multifamily, that's all you have to do. So there are ways to add value without renovating, but renovating is often required. And if you renovate smartly, you will add value. So that's why the BRRRR has reno in it. But you don't necessarily have to have that in it. You're right. It's possible. I've done BRRRRs without renovating. Darius asks, Darius has been following your Instagram. Good stuff. Like seeing you grow as an agent. Can you talk about what we should be shooting for say a $250,000 house? How much should you put into reno? And how much should you improve it when finished? Maybe can you do $300K as well? So, okay. So what does a good BRRRR look like? My ideal BRRRR used to look like buy for 200, ARV 300, right? Buy 300, ARV like 400. I needed at least 100 spread. That was always like my go-to as like a quick rule of thumb. But in an ideal world, you buy around 60, 65, 70 cents at the highest on the dollar. So if you think the property's gonna, if you have comps that like nice done, this property's worth say $400,000, at 70 cents on the dollar, you need to buy that property for like 275-ish, roughly, with closing cost plus closing costs, etc., all in. So that'll give you a rule of thumb: 60 to 70 cents on the dollar. And by dollar, I mean on the ARV dollar. So you're buying it at 200,000, and it could be worth 300. So around 60 to 70 cents on the dollar gives you a full BRRRR. Hopefully that helps. You guys see this? Check this out. I had a door slam on my finger. Oh, it hurts so bad. You can see the nails falling off. It hurts so bad. Random tangent on the Mike Rosehart Show. I'm gonna lose my nail. It's been like 2 months like this. The nail's gonna fall off. This is the challenges with renovating, and that's why I try not to do any renovations anymore, because every time I go, I hurt myself. Go through my Instagram and Facebook feed, and you'll see all the cuts on my leg I've had and all the issues. I have a scar on my hand when I was cutting vinyl floor, and it slipped and went right into my hand. The box knife, there it is. Guys probably can't see that with the camera. This is the down. We should have like a downsides of the BRRRR, like the emotional stress, the physical like toll it takes on your body. If you do the work yourself, even if you don't, you end up being on site and getting hurt. Safety first. You should probably wear a mask and goggles. I should probably go back and like tell myself 8 years ago to start like to buy a mask and goggles and safety equipment. I never did any of that. Just good old shirt over the face. You know, if you're like going through an attic or something, just like pull your shirt over your face. That was the good old technical I used to use. And then squint. That was a good one. I'd squint. If I'm like, you know, jackhammering, there's like dust everywhere on my shirt like this. Trying to like breathe through my shirt. That's not the right way to do it, but it is faster. You don't want to go to the store. Don't be me. Do better than me. Be better than me. That's why I have this channel for you guys. So hopefully that helped your answer. If it didn't, jump in the comments and let me know further clarification. So $250,000 house. Do the house price times 0.65 times decimal 65. That'll give you the valuation you should pay for the house. So if house is worth, after fix-ups, you got comparables in the $200,000 range, you know, then you're going to look for a house that's like 135,000-ish range. And that'll give you room to renovate and get a full BRRRR out of it. And if you don't get a full BRRRR, that's okay. Whoa, I just lost my live stream.
Oh yeah, Instagram caps it at an hour.
Oh, bummer.
You're over an hour.
So there's going to be no playback now.
For Instagram?
Yeah, it didn't save the playback. If it cuts out, the playback doesn't save.
Oh, really?
There is no playback, only on YouTube. Only YouTube. I'll go live again just for fun, but I gotta keep it to an hour, guys. I'm so bad at going over time. I'm so bad at that. We're back. And unfortunately, the whole hour playback is lost on Instagram. But if you wanted to see the hour of us talking about the BRRRR, you go on my YouTube channel and you find it there. On the Mike Rosehart Show YouTube channel, not the Mike Rosehart main channel. Just type in Mike Rosehart Show and you'll find it. Cool. Okay. Now I'm over here reading the next question. Mike, what are your thoughts on taking over a project that is half done? William asks. Looking at a duplex that is half done, nice on one side, totally rough on the other. Great value add opportunity, right? The fact that the one side is really bad might get you a good discount on the purchase price, and then you just finish half of it and get a great full valuation. So that's totally an option. Nothing wrong with that. Just run your numbers. Again, it always comes down to running your numbers. I have no problem taking on half a finished project. Be weary, though, of how they've done their finishes. When you pick up on someone else's renovation job, why did they stop? Did they run out of money? Or was there something bigger they ran into and that's why they gave up? So you just have to find out what it is and go from there. Okay, next question. Do you think buying storage units as opposed to housing units would be better for a beginner in real estate? I don't think, Logan. It's a good place to start in real estate investing. I've heard that it's running a business, right? You buy a storage unit business and you're buying a business. You have to manage, there's like a front office and all this work associated with that. I think rental properties are easier than, say, I'm getting like a lot of texts. I wonder what's going on. Like, oh my God, someone just said in a text message, the world must be ending. I don't even know what's going on. I don't even want to know. Someone just sent me a picture and, oh my gosh. Okay, anyway, so we'll deal with that problem after. The choice of real estate investing. Have you guys seen that meme on my Instagram where there's like a picture of like an 80-year-old grandma and it's like, who says real estate investing is stressful? I'm 48. Seriously, story of my life. This is why we have employees, though. It really helps people to take the burden, help share the load. So yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with buying a duplex, and storage units are great if you can get a good deal on them. A lot of them, people are attracted to storage units because they don't have to deal with landlord-tenant board and all the stresses associated with the landlord side. And so often we're seeing these buildings sell at these storage unit buildings selling at premiums. So you're not getting the same cash flow per dollar, same value add potential. Okay. Do you think buying storage units as opposed to housing units would be better for a beginner in real estate? The comps data on House Sigma or About My Property is very scarce. A lot of the time there's one comp that's 2 years old and 3 blocks away, and that's it. How do you overcome this? So Snake Eyes, good question. I think the key is, if you don't have good comps, House Sigma is a great app, by the way, for finding comps. If you're on the Toronto board, they don't have much in London unless a Toronto agent sold it. But I guess in Toronto it does work on House Sigma. There are more comps than you're maybe seeing on House Sigma, so be wary of that. If you don't have comps, you've got to go back far, or you've got to go into a similar market and try to get comps that way. It is a challenge as an appraiser to find comps sometimes. And so you have to do more work than just in the neighborhood. You got to go further out, or you've got to look at, go watch the video I did on how to get a good appraisal. It's called How to Get a Rockstar Appraisal. And it talks specifically about the 3 valuation fundamentals, I believe, in that video. I think it does. I have done a video on the 3 valuation techniques you use to value real estate, and one is the income approach. The second is the comparable analysis approach, and the third is the replacement cost approach. And so where no comparables exist, they have to then use income approach and or replacement cost approach to value property. Or you go back further on the comps. There are ways to find value even when it's not easily apparent. You have to do a little bit more work. That's how you overcome it. It's a good question, actually. Really good question. I think the easiest way to get started in real estate investing is just buy a simple turnkey property and go from there. And the second property, take on a little bit more. Also, is there any real benefit to buying a home in cash than refining after reno? Why is it even better for the seller? It's not really better for the, I'm trying to think of a way that it would be better for the seller. Oh, I see. I think maybe we were talking about on an offer, putting a cash offer. What that means is just there's no financing or home inspection condition. It means you're going to close guaranteed in cash. But physically closing in cash, technically a seller doesn't care how you close as long as you close. It's just with financing, there's a risk you can't close. If the bank pulls financing day of, because whatever reason, they find out it's a student rental and they don't want to finance it and you're dead in the water, you're screwed. So that's a risk if I was going to sell to someone. But why would you buy in cash? Because then you can throw a mortgage on it right after for potentially more than you bought it for. I hear you knocking. I'm going to wrap this up right now. But yeah, so definitely something to think about. Also, is there any real benefit to buying I did that question. What are the skills you look for in a realtor? Realtor checklist, please. Darius, I'd have to think on that. But experience as an investor would be a big one. If I was looking to use them as an investor, that they actually have investment properties. The more experience, the better. The more they've done it and done it well, the better they're probably going to do it for you. So that'd be a big one for me. But there's some other things. I'll think on that and get back to you. Thanks, great answers. Hey, appreciate that. What do you think about Calgary real estate? I think the market's depressed a bit, and it might be a good buying opportunity if you're doing Airbnb and stuff. I know some people doing some stuff out there. It's kind of cool. Bedtime, Mike. Have a good one, and good luck on your second. Thanks, guys. Ellie, good night. And everyone, thank you so much for watching. And if you missed the replay, the hour on the Instagram Live that died on me partway through, and the Facebook that died partway through, I guess it's now dead as well on the other company phone. But go on the YouTube channel, The Mike Rosehart Show, and you can watch the whole playback. And today's episode was loaded full of good content. So hopefully people will watch the playback and get some value from it. So cool. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. As always, the secret to unlocking and wealth through you in the beginning of your journey, there's 3 levers in this order: spend less, earn more, and then maximize the difference, maximize the return on your investment. So there's spending, income, what you're earning, and then the return on that investment. And then later on in your journey, when you've built wealth, it's all about how to maximize those returns, earn more money, and then spending less becomes the least important thing once you've built a good net worth. right? But for most people, it's spending less, earning more, and maximizing returns. Those are the 3 levers you have to play with. Learn how to maximize all 3. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a good night. Mike Rosehart, out. Ending the live stream. Boom. Thanks, guys. Thanks, D's Information. Good to see all the regulars on, and I'll see you guys all next week unless we're in labor. But I'll check on Instagram. There'll be pictures and stuff. You can follow along for the journey. How do I end this live stream? I lost the thing. There we go. Bye, guys.